Hello and welcome to The Other View, and I am Omar Saleh. This video is about the types of strategy, and as you probably know from our discussions in this strategy video before, I said we will come back and expand a little bit more on strategy in a variety of videos, and maybe even in the future in some podcasts. So this particular one starts to discuss various ways of having approaches to achieving the objectives. But before we start talking about what are the types of strategies available to us, and there are lots of types, we should go back to the definition of strategy. If you espouse to the definition I have taken up in my videos, which is the how of achieving our strategic objectives via using programs and projects and initiatives that we build aimed at the strategic objectives themselves that we set ourselves. So the types of strategies really are influenced a lot of the time by the type of objective that we are trying to go through. And there are multiple objectives we might be going through as a business. There are sales objectives, there are market share objectives, there are financial objectives in terms of profitability or margins or expenses and costs of the business. There are operational objectives in terms of automation, business processes, and so on. And there are, of course, you can think more people objectives in terms of skilling and in terms of numbers and efficiency and productivity, and so on and so forth. So depending on what it is, the type of objectives we're trying to achieve, we tend to try and develop strategies to fit into those. So just to give examples of what we are trying to do here. So for example, there are ways, if let's say it's growth, in terms of sales is one of the objectives. And don't confuse the two between growth or market share. Growing sales can grow market share, but it doesn't necessarily mean growing market share. So when you set a strategic objectives like growth, it is quite essential to say whether you are just trying to grow the revenue or whether you're trying to grow your position within the marketplace. Because you can grow your revenue, but it doesn't grow at the same rate as the market itself. And as a result, you will grow the income, but you don't grow your position within that market. So distinguishing between those is very important. So let's say growth is one of the strategic objectives, and to increase market share. So how do you do that? There are lots of ways. So we could develop a strategy where you can grow your market share or your position in the market via selling more. You could do that via increasing your sales force, distribution channel, projects and programs, advertising, above the line and below the line, promotions, controlling your 4 Ps in marketing, which is the price and the place and the product, and so on. You can increase your market share by deciding to go into new markets, in terms of sales, by going into new markets, or you can develop new products as extension products to what you have. And of course, as the biggest ultimate way of doing it sometimes is to go into a merger or acquisition or a partnership with another company, where you basically leverage off each other, or you take them over completely. So there are a variety of ways of doing that. So you could build programs, projects and initiatives, and they become the strategies to achieve those objectives. The trick, whether you pick that or you pick profitability or margin, is when you build those programs and projects and initiatives, you make sure you stick with them. A lot of the time, people tend to pick those strategies, and they sort of like picking up a plant every 3 months to check whether the roots have grown or not. The same thing with strategies. The 2 points you really to keep in mind. One is there is no one strategy that can achieve the same objective. So you can have an objective, okay, but there are more than one. There is more than one way of achieving that objective. So when you work out the various strategies to achieve the objective, you pick the one that applies to you best, that plays well with your resources and with your competencies and with your capabilities, and it targets your markets best. Now, but that doesn't mean a competitor of yours will actually tackle the same objective but from a different kind of strategy, simply because his resources or her resources or your competitor's resources and competencies are different from yours. So they use and projects and programs and initiatives that are to suit them. And the one of you who tends to match the resources and competence and the abilities of the projects and programs to aim at those objectives are the one that ends up winning in the marketplace. Of course, now you can work backwards. You can have financial objectives, and similarly you can achieve them via more than one strategy and more than one sets of projects and programs, and you can have a variety of rules and regulations of how you tackle operational objectives and people objectives and technological or innovation objectives and so on. So knowing in your own organization what are the objectives very well and how to get to them is absolutely critical to deciding which type of strategy you're going to adopt. And those types of strategies that you pick need to be the ones you can operate better than anybody else. You can pick a phenomenal strategy, but if you don't have the skills and resources and competencies to run it, then it's not going to happen. So keeping those things in mind is very important, and making sure that you have covered all your options is just as important. And it's also important so that you can predict what your competitors might deploy in terms of strategy and how you can impact their success or failure in a variety of ways in the way you achieve yours. I hope that just begins to touch upon the various types of the strategies. We are going to get to some podcasts in the future into next year where we get into how do you build, let's say, a market expanding strategy, or how you build into product development, or mergers and acquisitions, or internationalization and so on. But for the time being, it's important to know that there are multiple strategies you could choose to achieve the same objective, and the important point is to pick what is best for you and to make sure you sustain it and you target your best people and your best resources at making it happen. So if you like what you've heard on this, please subscribe to my channel, and thank you for listening.